It's great to see everyone. It is Wednesday, November 5th. I always have to look at my watch. You'd think I'd know what day it is or the date or something.
The older you get, the more you do.
And we're starting with our new book, Burning Girls, backwards, and other stories by Veronica Schanoes. So as always, I like to show you what she looks like.
Very true.
I'm afraid I do.
Yeah, we're.
She is young. Here, look up here. She's young.
I liked it.
She's really young.
Yeah.
It's okay. I have my reasons too.
So,
Not a first book though, is it?
anyway.
She had to be young to write this.
Yeah. Has she written before? It's just a first book.
Let me read the bio and then we'll delve right in. And I did give you the warning that it was a long story this time.
I didn't.
If you started it. Okay, where is she? Oh, she's on Rate My Professors.
This was her debut collection.
Okay.
Oh, it is. Interesting.
Okay. Veronica Schanoes.
Oh, is that?
Oh, God. You know what? You start, oh, here it is. Is an American author of fantasy stories and an associate professor in the Department of English at Queens College, SUNY. Her novella, Burning Girls, was nominated for the Nebula Award and the World Fantasy Award and won the Shirley Jackson Award for the Best Novella in 2013. So maybe she's written more since that. She lives in New York City, of course. Burning Girls and Other Stories is her debut collection. Let's see if I can find more on her. Research interests. I work on fairy tales and use their contemporary text. My current project on Jewish representation in English language fairy tale tradition traces Jewish presence in fairy tales from the late 19th century to the present day. My first book, Fairy Tales, Myth, and Psychoanalyst. Okay, I didn't sign that, now did I? Feminism and Retelling the Tale, which came out of Ashgate Press in 2014. I also write fantasy speculative fiction. My second book is Burning Girls, which we're reading, and her educational background. She has a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania, an MA from the University of Pennsylvania, and a BA from Barnard, which is also at Columbia. That's she could be religious. You know, it's very Jewy there, very, very Jewy. Okay, so she does come highly credentialed.
Yes.
Shall I say that? And let me get back. Okay, so let's. I don't even know what to ask first. Izzy.
I loved it.
Yay! We're starting with Izzy.
Right.
Izzy, go, keep going.
I read it through. I only had time last night. I read it right through. I found
Yeah, you had to.
fascinating, and I think I learned a lot.
I learned
And this is, and I looked a lot of things up. I've never done that. I've never done that in a book before. So I had to look it up on Google.
Right.
So Monday night, I'm taking a class on Kabbalah from Rabbi Flinkenstein because my son-in-law, my Abba Shalom was there and so whatever. So that's why I couldn't come, that's why I couldn't come on, that's why I couldn't come.
To rabbis.
Rabbi Moffat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he talked slightly, it was the first class, but he talked slightly about this. A lot of it was about Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned from the first lesson something about a tree. It's like a human being. And in this story, they talked about the tree with the vines growing and well, that's closely aligned with one of the big things of Kabbalah. The whole first chapter we did about a tree, how a tree is like a human being. Right. And did you know that the giant trees, redwood trees in California, they have 10-inch, maybe 1 or 2 feet roots. They go sideways. They go sideways down. And so they help all the other trees. They're all rooted together, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
So that's roots people. So I said, man is like a tree. So when she talks about the vines enclosing them, that was her symbolism, which I only learned on Monday.
But they were killing people
Yes.
Well, because they were.
The thorns.
No, I understand, but a tree produces thorns. It can do good things and bad things. When it produces, it does more good things. There are three things a tree does. It grows, it produces fruit and, okay, and then, when you talked about the threes, everything in threes. Well, I had heard that at a funeral once, that you say something three times. They blow the shofar three times.
They do.
If you want to convert, the rabbi is supposed to turn you down 3 times.
Right, three times.
And the tree is intentional.
And it's intentional. They say holy, holy, holy. And they talk about this, about the numbers.
Yeah,
And Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I looked up,
Yeah.
all the threes are on the.
there's a lot of 3s.
Plus the 7, 10, 18, 12, and 40, and 613. There's
Yeah.
a lot of numbers
Right.
that mean
Right.
a lot of things. But I thought it was a wonderful allegory. I looked up Shekinah. I didn't know what that meant.
Right, the Shekinah is
It's
the
Female.
female
Female
side of God.
Right, which I never knew. I wouldn't have known had I not read this book.
Right.
And she stopped his will. There were 3 things that she had to do to stop him. And I thought putting the town to sleep for many years was a great idea.
Yeah,
And the reason is,
if only we could do that now.
the reason being.
Although they're trying to. All right, Alice, sorry.
Can I just, the reason that I thought it was good that she put him to sleep? Because generations are gonna remember what happened, just like in Gaza. You have a grandson that's killed or a son that's killed or what, you're gonna remember it for generations, to generations.
Stories.
So I thought that, yes, so I thought that the fact that she would put them to sleep for years was great. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Who else wants the first volley? I have questions, but on the name, I thought she's a good writer. I thought she's very.
She's a good writer. I just don't like that type of
Fantasy.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Was a allegory.
Alice.
Yeah, I understand.
All right, Alice and then Ellen.
Okay, what I was gonna say is, I appreciate, Izzy, what you just said. I guess what I didn't like about the story, it wasn't very accessible. It was just like, well, yeah, you have to go to a class on Kabbalah, or you have to read.
I looked it up afterwards.
I know. I mean, I looked up Magid and I looked up Matronit, and I kind of knew what Sheki, but it's like it was very dense, and I don't know, it just wasn't that accessible to me. I understood that she wanted to, I guess you call it avenge her father's killing,
Yeah.
but I understood that, and she was a very strong woman, which was good.
Now seeing that she went to Barnard, a Magid is something. It's a storyteller, and we were talking in the office. We were joking about, is there another word for a song leader? And I said a zemer, and I said we could have a zemer, a Magid. Storytellers. These are all old. They're all Hebrew, but it's all coming back in context so that you don't call a song leader a song. It gives more status or whatever because people don't know what it is. Ellen, Merle, then Lynn. Ellen.
Okay, I read the story the first time, and actually, when I finished the story last week, I said, this is one I'm never gonna read again.
Okay.
However,
But
I
you
read
did.
it this morning. I read most of it. But, it is, whatever, a fairy tale, whatever, or whatever you want to call it. I thought it was beautifully written. I think I appreciated it more the second time, but I have a huge question. I have a couple of questions, but
I can answer them.
the male female thing, and I get what she's saying, but I've never heard of that. The fact that I'm familiar with the Shekinah, but I'm
Right.
not familiar with Matronit.
Right.
I looked it up. I mean, I knew what it meant, but
Right.
is that referred to often? That was one question.
So I think that when, first of all, as Reformed Jews, we don't always study about God, talk about God. But when you talk about God, and this we do talk about with the kids in religious school, is that, we're made B'Tselem Elohim. We're made in the likeness of God. So if we're made in the likeness of God, of course, we're all women here, there has to be something that we can see in God that's like us. And that's how I would that's how I would explain the Shekhinah. And, right. And it's also become much more in vogue in the past, I don't know, 20 years or whatever. And as people, as women have been able to study and are studying it in Hebrew, and there is a comment that you're not supposed to study Kabbalah until you're 40, the Zohar, so that you can understand. It's also so that you studied everything else. And, maybe there's something to be said about that I think that sometimes it's hard for us because we don't have that background context. And there was a lot of history in this, pogroms, and that the Jews and Christians didn't talk to one another. I mean, this is so foreign from the society that we're living in. There was, when a Jew did something bad, they were put in cherem, which means they were thrown out of the city. Spinoza and, well, there's some other famous ones. But when you were put in cherem, the Christians wouldn't talk to you. The Jews aren't allowed to talk to you. You're on your own. Now it's Spinoza's case. He was very fruitful and he was an author, and it worked for him. But I think that, looking at this, it's difficult. It's so hard for us to even imagine.
All right, I get that, but on page 42, where it's in the beginning of the matron, well, maybe not the beginning, but she says, the matronly chose her words carefully. It's on the top of the page. Hashem is hungry for power. He always has been.
So that's, Hashem is Adonai.
Right, of course. But he rides the waves of power and does not care who is crushed beneath him.
I know,
I put a question mark with the next.
Yeah,
did too.
I mean, that when I got to that
Question mark
part, that was
with
like,
exclamation
oh my,
Yeah, me too.
what is she making
Oh my
this up?
God.
Where is
Right.
this?
Well, I think, again, when you go back, if you, and I'd love for our Torah study to do this, but if you went through the Torah and then you went through, our Bible is Torah, prophets, and writings. If you read through the prophets, they are vicious, bloody, warrior. We know David, we know Saul, but I mean, even Deborah, she was, she picked her soldiers out. So that's what, in my mind, I could be wrong. And I was so happy when I'm going to wait till we get a little farther along, when I emailed, and our last book was Courtney Zofnes. I almost didn't remember her name. We just stopped it. Anyway, but I'd be happy to ask her some of these questions, let her know that we're, really wrestling with her words. Right. I have Merle, Lynn, and then Judy. Merle.
Okay. Well,
Wait, did you have more, Ellen?
No, it was that, and it was, I questioned, I'll just throw these questions out of them.
Yeah, well.
I questioned whether she would really go, because she had to commit fully to what the matronate was going to do it for her. And I questioned how believable that was. But then the whole thing was.
Do you not have a teenage girl?
Believable.
Yeah. Do you not know any teenage girls?
Of course. And I understood why, she was desperate for some type of retribution. Okay. I can't read my glasses.
mhm.
Can I
Yeah,
respond
that's the
to
whole thing
Ellen?
about abandoning the Jews. Okay.
Ellen's first thing?
That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
You know where you
Merle and
said,
Lynn.
okay, you know where you said, top of 42? The end of that paragraph, the end of that grouping, I think answers us that she too, it feels the way you do.
Yeah. That she.
Yeah, she says,
meaning
she
the
says,
matronate or
then I
or-
will desert him. She too, like you, like me, felt that was not what she should do.
I mean, what?
She should not follow him.
Where are you?
I'm
right after this?
42, it's where Ellen had read
Right.
that he's hungry for power. And then she said, if I could have, I would have spat, then I will desert him. So she felt like you, in my opinion, that was.
Why
the
should I
answer.
remain devout?
So she had gone to
That's
that.
it.
Right. That was-
Okay, Merle, then Lynn, then Roberta. Merle.
Okay. When you think about a young person losing her father, the usual reaction is, oh, crying, depression. I miss him so much. This girl's reaction is, I will surround that town with death. I will wrap death around their hearts. I will rip them apart. I will kill them all, every one. And what is even more surprising is that her uncle, who has come back with this horrible story about what happened, he doesn't try to stop her. He met my gaze and nodded. Then he took my hands in his and said, so be it. And so right away, it sets up this feminist story. You know, this girl is going to go
was
through
just gonna
something
say.
to avenge her father.
Mhm.
And, I was thinking about Hamlet, where he also had to avenge his father,
Yeah.
except he went through to be or not to be, so much indecision. There's no indecision here. He is going to avenge her father. So I thought it was a very good way to, start the story, a good catalyst.
Interesting. Lynn, then Roberta and Evie.
Okay, I think that we need to accept the premise of the book before we begin to continue our discussions. First of all, this is it's a burning feminist book. You're gonna get a frame of mind that you're not gonna agree with all the time or believe what is happening here. And I think purposely, this denigration of God is deliberate in order to empower her to complete what she wants to do. And that you can't rely on God for this. You have to, it's not something we agree with, necessarily. I'm saying to some of you, I wrote in the book, is that necessary? I'm not agreeing with her methods, but at the end, she does she mediates, she mellows a bit and said, I can't do that. What else can we do? And also magical realism. We need to talk about what that is, because a lot of you probably don't even know what magical realism is. And you really have to suspend disbelief. When I've taught magical realism, kids are turned off. This is.
What did you teach that was magical
I
realism?
taught Ta-Nehisi Coates, what is it, not water.
Wait, no, I'll Google.
It was his book.
The Color of Water? No, that's
That's
another one.
That's another one, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, they said, that's ridiculous. That couldn't happen. I said, that can only happen that way if.
The Water Dancer.
The water dancer. You can only he can only get his point across by making this magical realism.
Mhm.
So I think we'll need to.
Is that like an allegory or is that like a?
Magical realism is creating it's something that could never happen, but it's within the realm of possibility. And he has to create a bridge where a bridge could never go, because how could the people get across without a bridge? So he makes a bridge.
Okay.
So you have to say, that can never happen, but we're using magical realism.
Okay.
He makes it happen. Like somebody said to me the other day, that ending of the story was so manipulative. I said, well, that's the author, and that author is allowed to manipulate the story. So
Right.
we have to get into the
Right.
skin of the author,
Right.
which is hard in this case
Yeah.
for many of us,
Right.
to.
Roberta and then Evie. Roberta.
I think we forget that the story is not literal. If you read about the author at the beginning, she relies on fact, but she takes it to a place where we wouldn't normally go. And I think I loved the story. I thought it was very rich in symbolism, and I know that the story was real long, but I have so many points checked that I want to know more what she meant. But I think we can't ask ourselves, this is ridiculous, it wouldn't have happened. We have to just suspend our belief and go where she takes us and ask her why. Not literally why. What does this mean? What can I tie it to in reality to understand its meaning?
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do with the story.
Thank you. Roberta saw Richard at the pool this morning.
I know, he said it. So
Both need a light.
hair.
Yeah. Evie, then Judy.
Okay, I really did not like this story. I really had a hard time with it. I kept applauding myself every few pages. And I got this, but I loved the very, very last sentence. And I think because I was reflecting back to all the years I, privileged enough to study with Joyce Schrager, and she would always say, Zachor, Zachor, remember, remember, remember. This very last sentence gave me permission not to have to remember, to be able to take a different path. But I also want to say something about what Lynn had just said about magical realism. And my experience with magical realism was when I was going from doctor to doctor to doctor to figure out why I had pain, why I couldn't walk, and so on and so forth. And then I finally went to what they called the Russians, which was this group of a collaborative bunch of doctors that did different things. And they sent me for acupuncture. And I said to the acupuncturist, does this work? And he said, for those who believe it will work. And about 3 months later, I had surgery. So what can I say? I just love that. Kind of hold it together to me, to be able to take a different path.
Judy, and then I have.
On page 36, she didn't expect to escape her revenge.
Yes.
Yes.
And to me, that changed how the rest of the story unfolded.
Interesting.
Tell us why.
I didn't think she'd be able to escape her revenge.
Oh.
And
So you thought she was at least practical in that?
yes, I thought that made sense. How could you fight what her father couldn't fight? And so I knew that made me more interested in going forward.
Going forward.
In the story.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Was that before the Matrix?
Yes,
Before the
Matrix.
Matrix.
Yes,
Okay,
that was
so did you
before.
change your mind after she entered the picture?
I did.
I
It's
also
interesting that
want
you
to.
asked that.
I also want to comment a little bit, I see Roberta and Mary, a little bit on Jewish history. That at this point in Jewish history, we're looking back as Americans who have an Israel. And the way Jews got along with the non-Jewish populations for hundreds of years was to comply and do what the non-Jewish government told you to do. And it changed after Nazi Germany. I was talking, we talked to the author of The Whisper Sister, Jennifer S. Brown, and that was a great book, by the way. And she said that she is only going to write before the Holocaust, because if you write after the Holocaust, you have to mention it. Because I was complaining about there's so many books about the Holocaust, and people call me all the time. Would you like a blah, 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 blah. No, I'm done. I'm cooked and I'm done. But we have to look at how did Jews respond then, and what did they have? And as Americans, we wouldn't respond that way. And as Jewish Americans within Israel, we wouldn't respond that way either. And we just have to keep that. We have to keep that in mind. Yeah. All right, I have Mary, Roberta, and then Sandy. Mary.
So one of the things I thought was really interesting about this story is that I had just read the Rothschild women, about the rise of the Rothschild family.
Oh.
They were from Frankfurt. They moved exactly where she was. And he made money in finance and sent his sons to London. And from London, they went to France and Italy. He went to where they, but the only person who stayed there was the original Rothschild who had to go when they left. The mother left and father left the ghetto right outside. I mean, they even describe it exactly the same way. The father died, and she never moved, and they used to go back and visit, but they didn't do it. And some of the stuff when you read that is really interesting because it's some of the same problems. How do you get along with your neighbor? And yet, and building wealth was an issue. Number two is that I took a course with Ike about God within us. And if God's inside of us, God isn't always good. We have to accept the fact that if the prophets, it's not always what we
Salam
think of.
Elohim,
Yeah.
because we're not all good.
It's not all good. And that, and he, you know, a lot of people don't accept that, which is fine. They want the Garden of
No,
Eden.
but that's
But-
a really good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the other part of it is the whole story of Genesis. Okay, so Adam and Eve sinned. So God said, no more Garden of Eden. And you're gonna have to deal with thorns,
Right.
thorns.
Childbirth.
Right.
And right, and eat off the land and not only in the garden. So the point is that I think that is God's retribution, but he also bled, but you can have food in the field, but you're gonna have to work for it.
Right.
It's hard to be a farmer. So the point is, I think this is very much the same thing, is that this is retribution, but there's a way out of just killing everybody off, period.
Yeah.
And there's that idea of
Yeah.
people can
Thank you.
change or
Yeah.
whatever these things.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is some reality to this.
Right.
There's history and
Right.
reality beyond the myth.
I have Roberta, did you want to say something? And then Sandy, and then Elaine. Roberta, did you have another comment?
Yes, I wanted to say I took this story beyond. I took it as prompting for the reader to ask about justice, vengeance, morality, what's right, what's wrong, forgiveness. I mean, all those broad themes. I think the story forces the reader to go beyond the literal word and ask oneself about the broader aspects. And I just have one other comment. I'm almost afraid to mention it, but
Go ahead.
when-
We don't usually hear that in this group. You people just flop it out. Go ahead, Roberta.
I don't mean to offend anybody, but my first initial reaction in comparison to the Thorns is Jesus and the
It's the same thing. It goes back to the image of
Very interesting.
I didn't hear it.
the crown of thorns.
Jesus and the crown of thorns. And I think for some of this, it's, you know, I think it's right. As Jews, and for some of us not born Jews, it would be more, yeah. Oh, that's fascinating.
And found crown of thorns in Christianity is the recognition that Jesus suffered for the sins of the people.
Yeah.
And if you put and it was a way for retribution not to be totally, he had retribution, but the people were saved. Just as she put the thorns around the people, but the people might be saved in the future. It is very much it goes through, and the crown of thorns goes back. The Christians use that because of the Genesis statement of the thorns, and they prick you when you remember the suffering, you remember that the wrong and the sins, and that maybe you can be better. That's that whole thing. But it's very
Fascinating.
connected
I
to.
just think that really, thank you for making me feel
Right.
so, not.
It's
so-
fine. Roberta, wow. It's all, okay, I have Sandy, Elaine, and then Merle. Sandy, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't say that I really like the book or what, but I read about 2/3 of it, and it just was so personal. I know so little about my grandparents, but both sets of grandparents came to the United States in the 1880s. And I just thought that's why they came here.
Yes, I'm sure that definitely helped, emigration to the United States.
Read my great grandparents saying, what'll happen to our kids if they stay here? And they married them off, maybe two families married them off at she was probably about 15 and he was probably about 17 or 18. And they didn't want him to have to go into the Tsar's army. And they put him on a boat with a sack, and they came to America, to Boston, on the boat.
I think, Sandy, everyone sitting here, I'm not sure, but we can thank our grandparents for leaving before it was too late. All of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a common theme.
I mean, it is, I read it in this horrible life they had. I just thought, because my grandfather became a peddler,
Yeah, just like that. Exactly.
Well,
Okay. Hopefully you'll keep reading. You'll still like it.
You won't like the next.
Elaine, Merle, and Evie.
All right, let's take the book and move into present world. And how,
Alice doesn't like that.
I know.
It's okay.
On Alice.
It's okay. Don't put it on me.
How many of us hold a grudge and how that turns you inside out?
Interesting.
And how the baby really ended up converting her to
Yes.
a nicer person.
Yes.
So let's, we don't have to live in the 1800s to know that when someone does you wrong, we had this conversation yesterday with someone who will remain nameless. how we don't forgive.
Yeah.
And maybe this will teach us how it destroys you from the inside out.
Yeah.
So maybe, and I was not crazy about the book either, but maybe we can learn something. And I think that we all could use that because I certainly could.
I think it's just a great point. I have Merle and then Evie. Merle?
Yeah, the family was just so representative and symbolic of what a typical Jew is. What is the father's job? A pawnbroker. What else? That is something that would be so typical, a pawnbroker, a money lender. That's so typically Jewish. And then
Because the Christians couldn't do it. They were not allowed to do
Also
that.
wouldn't let them own land.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let them.
Right. You couldn't own land. You had to take something that you could quickly leave with jewels, your knowledge, a doctor.
That's why they became.
Okay. And then their home. It's described as a nice home, but not too nice.
Too nice.
My mother had selected
I
it when
love
she
that.
was already pregnant with my eldest brother. Too nice, and they are jealous. So
Right.
not too nice, because when they came to her house, she didn't want them to be jealous or do anything. So I thought every little detail that she chose was supposed to represent what Jews went through, all this prejudice against Jews, and they had to be so careful about every detail of their life just to live among the Christians. So I thought she really thought very hard about these details.
Evie.
Well, I just wanted to almost build on what Elaine was saying in terms of the present day, because I was thinking in terms of the thorns and the painfulness of thorns and how you remember painful things. And then as you get more perspective or further away, you remember it, but you don't remember the exact feeling. I mean, even childbirth. I mean, how many of us would have more children if we remember so vividly?
None of us. We'd have one child apiece.
Yeah. But I think, we kind of hang on to and we maybe reinterpret and maybe underscore some things, but it kind of fades with perspective. And the other thing in terms of what was just said in terms of the home being good or not so very good. All of a sudden, I just had a flashback, and I think it's in Bereshit in terms of creation, in terms of it was good, and then the Shabbat or something was very good, but it was not very good until the last. Do you remember what I'm talking about, Vanessa? Because I don't know.
Well, I mean, on Tuesdays he said very good. It says very good twice, and that's why people get married on Tuesdays, and every day.
I'll get married in Tuesdays.
Wait, who is? All right, two comments. One, this is really, now you're making me think about my parents, and my mother always says, if any of you meet her, you can't say anything. She goes, I don't hold a grudge. And I said in my eulogy at my father's funeral that he would be so surprised to see everyone. Now, my mother, after that funeral, and at her funeral, she was like, I didn't see Harry. I didn't see blah, blah, blah. Where was blah, blah, blah? And I was like, oh my God. And to this, my dad's been dead not quite 4 years, you know. Harry never came. And he didn't come, he didn't come to the funeral, he didn't come to Shiva. I have written him off. I'm not talking about him. And
I don't hold the grudge.
and my dad was a veterinarian in Crystal Lake, and he could have afforded the most expensive car. He said, but he drove Buicks. He goes, I don't want to put a Cadillac out in front
You're right.
of the hospital.
Right.
He didn't want people to think,
I get it.
and that, when he said that,
I get it.
I was like, wow.
Gotta go.
Mother always was like, you have to be quiet, you have to be polite, you have to, because we were the only Jews and you don't want to stand up. That was the mentality.
Right.
And my grandmother was American born and my grandfather was not. He came from Poland. But you didn't want to make too big a show.
You don't understand.
Lynn,
As this story went on, I saw her, and her name is Itala. Grow stronger and stronger in her beliefs and her actions and the way in which she thought. And what struck me, and I'm going to be reviewing a book called How to Read a Book, and I don't know if you have all read
is it good?
It's very good.
The book?
I read it. But it's called How to Read a Book, but it's really not how to read a book. Okay, anyway, there's the story and there's the meanwhile she talks about. And there's a lot of meanwhile in this story. So we have to remember what the main story is and that she is trying to seek revenge. However, in order to learn your characters in a book, you have to go very slowly so that you understand motivation and where a person comes from and why they're doing what they're doing. And I found it very interesting on page 33. She talks about the conflict between parenting and having a child and seeking her revenge.
Yeah.
And that's a very key passage in here, so I'm going to read it. I think it was her wish for me to wed her brother Nathaniel, and he was not unkind. The match would have been well made, but I knew that motherhood would destroy any plan of mine to see my father's grave and take vengeance on the man who ended his life because of what we owe to our children. To put myself at great risk, that was my choice, my prerogative. But if I had children, it is not right for parents to abandon their children, never. I knew too well what it meant to lose one's greatest protector and caretaker, the one in whose face the sun rises and sets while still young. And I could never have done that to my child. We owe our children our lives. And
That's really beautiful.
that paragraph really struck me.
Beautiful.
And I started, because I think revenge, which is a two-edged sword, it really does not accomplish much except in the
feel bad.
moment. And certain people.
See, that's what I'm saying. Don't do revenge, except for the people I say.
People that I hate.
Exactly.
So meanwhile, we see this part of her. And we have to remember the meanwhiles in the book so that we understand what she is doing. And I think at the end, she says to her, Montrix, what's the name?
Yeah.
He continues to say, you're disrespecting me. You have to follow him. She said, I can't do that. I can't do that. And we see conscience.
Yeah. Well, we see
And
her
I
getting
think what
strong.
this book is, we should expect it. This book is going to show us women gaining strength in different ways.
I like that. I like that a lot. Ellen and then Mary, do you
Well,
read?
Just a quick comment.
Yeah.
I think that
the punch after what you read is the very end where she doesn't expect to have a daughter. Eva becomes this wonderful thing. And I think that the discussion between the matron or whatever
Itala.
is so appropriate or so touching in terms of the fact that she's rejecting the fact that she can be a mother, but she's convincing her and she realizes that she's been a mother, and that part I thought was beautiful.
And I'm sure that it's not by circumstance that the little girl's name is Eva. Like, so I'm sure
Mother's
that.
name. She's a good writer.
Okay, so that totally foreshadows the end. But the other part of the end, which I thought was really interesting, is the baby becomes Jewish, dark curly hair. I mean, if you go right back to the stereotypes of what a Jewish baby would look like versus the father who's the, the violinist who, or whatever, and who was fair. I mean, it was a total transformation of that child physically.
Right.
So I think that's where the mysticism comes in, is kind of like.
That too, that too.
But it still is talking about, I think, nurturing and loving transforms you from being totally harsh and always wanting complete retribution,
Right.
not finding partial retribution or ways out or ways to, that's not so horrendous. You're not going to go kill
Right.
kill a whole city or village, but you're going to put them in chains basically for a while. So I think that, she was transformed, but so was the baby. I thought that was really an interesting image.
She did disguise her image
the
at the
point that
beginning,
you
too.
made, the point she made before, which I have seen now in the last 3 books that I have read, about how we are amalgams of the good and evil. And that
Oh, yeah.
this happens to her too, because I'm not very fond of her in the beginning, this-
Of Italy.
yeah, like this tough, wanting revenge, and I'm gonna, and whatever. And even killing these other people, it sort of bothered me with the squeezing with the thorns and
It's brutal.
but we have to see the other side as well. I mean, we have our best sides and we have I've said this before, we all have a dark side,
Doesn't the black Torah say an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think, right, and then we'll, end up with blind and gumless. So I think that, again, as moderns, we're looking at this and we know that the prefrontal cortex is not developed. She's a teenager and who said it wasn't realistic? I'm like, I know teenagers who could do that. And, maybe she is growing throughout that. But I know that I've learned from Rabbi Sarada, and I don't think anyone here would be shocked. Sometimes something happens and I want to be like, I'm so mad. Like why, when people come, it's not this group. It's like when people have B'nai Mitzvah and then they leave and like, I've spent so much time with them and they're like, bye-bye. But Rabbi Sarada always says you catch more, flies with honey than vinegar. So I try. It doesn't always happen. Let me just say, in the office, sometimes when somebody difficult comes or, sometimes we have these people who are, just begging. They want to see the rabbi. They go like, all right, Vanessa out. I go, okay, he has no money. Goodbye. Yeah, I maybe that's a bad thing. We had somebody at Lakeside, he came with the x-rays of his daughter, that her leg was broken. And what happens when these people do that, then synagogues start calling you, did he come to you? Yeah, he came to us too. So it's
To get free.
Membership fee.
No.
they want, they want to be members, money.
Oh, they're asking for
Money.
I thought they were running free
Money.
membership.
Now, I've also had people who've come after we've done our food drive, for the High Holy Days. I'm like, we don't have any money. Do you want to take? And they're like, oh, that would be great. That'd be great. You need those diapers, take them. You need this, take it. That we can share with you.
Yes.
So, and then someone said to me, well, how do you know they need it? I said, if you're going to come and beg at a synagogue, I think you're going to need it. All right. I have a question. Now I just have.
Always err on this unrighteousness.
Yes.
Worry about the person who questioned that person.
I know and it's always you know, listen, the things we see here, you know, that it could be
Write
a
a book.
A book.
Write a book.
that could be a book. And you know, sometimes what people want or whatever, it's right. What? No, that's not it. Oh, how does the story challenge or affirm our expectations of fairy tales, especially given its dark bent? What happens when we expect a moral or a happy ending?
What happens?
I don't think fairy tales have happy endings.
No, if you think about Cinderella
Grimm's fairy tale is
or
Cinderella.
Snow White or any of them.
Right, see, that's the thing. Grimm's fairy tale is horrendous. Grimm. And you know, that's right.
Horrendously.
Right, and Cinderella and that, one of the sisters cuts her heel off so she can get into the shoe. I mean, it's really disturbingly bloody. But I do think some of them end happy. I mean, Cinderella marries she married the prince. Yeah, that's happy ending. You don't think that's who doesn't think? I don't know.
But
she
Snow
had to suffer
White
first.
and Bambi and all of those.
Yes, well, that's Disney.
Yeah.
I'm talking about fairy tale. I'm not talking about Disney. Because why that happens, I don't know. But this is when you go into magical realism. You know, do you expect it to be this dark? I mean, it was dark, Elaine.
All right, again, we're in today's world.
Yep.
You can't, you know, are we happy with what has happened in today's world? No, we're not. So we learn to accommodate. We learn, I mean, some people are really dug into their hatred and their path. But most of us move on and we deal with it. And I think that is basically what she's going to end up doing in the story.
Right.
She's going to take the daughter, she's going to live her life, and that will be the end of it. And whatever crime she committed, which is a crime of killing all the people.
It is.
And putting the people to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, she'll have to live with that. But how many of us do that? We do something and then we sort of put it in our back pocket and put on a different face to the world. And I think that's what she's doing in that.
Well, I think the going to London's huge because London opened up.
Yeah.
England did for Jews at that time. It was very good comparatively. They got the vote probably about 80 years later. It was not that long before Jews could vote and have a place in parliament.
When was that?
Well, in the early 1800s. So 1700s they started. It took a while. I mean, it took a long time, but they got it way before women got the vote in England. So, but they also got someone in parliament. So Montefiore was the first person in parliament. And it took a couple of tries. He was allowed to run, but didn't make it. And they did make it, and they took it away from him because he was, and then they changed their mind. But the point is that it was better in terms of Europe. It was probably the best place to be. And the Portuguese Jews who had gone to Amsterdam came back and they established Sephardic temples or synagogues in London, in England. And the third thing is that sort of interesting is that a lot, you know, okay, so England had the first reform or progressive Jewish prayer book in Europe, which I found that out from the Rothschild because they were involved with getting that.
It wasn't Germany?
No, it was, well, probably about the same time, but see, in Germany, it might have been, in England, I mean, in London, they adopted it in the temples as this is the way to go. So the point is that they could be very open about their Judaism in a way you couldn't other places.
Yeah.
Like my grandfather was born in Constantinople and ended up, my mother was born in London, and he joined his family in London in the in the 1800s.
Yes, 1800s was a boom time.
He was born in 1863, but he ended up in London.
Judy Van Lin.
I have to say that if ICE wasn't around, if before ICE, and I had read this, I would feel differently. having surviving ice and the concept behind ice, this story was more pleasant.
I'm reading about ice, yes.
I'm ready for revenge, folks. I'm ready for revenge. So if I had read this before ice, I don't know if I would have felt the same.
Interesting. So interesting, Lynn.
I have a question about not the last line, not the last paragraph where she agrees to keep the rights. She said, I will keep your rights. I didn't see how that's.
Yes.
No.
She said.
Yeah, she said that.
R-I-G-H-T-S or?
No, R-I-T-E-S. I think she's saying I'll stay Jewish.
Right.
Oh, you think that's it?
That's what I think. I could be wrong. But,
If there's anything more than that, I was questioning that
Right.
because I don't believe, in light of some of the things she said, I mean, a lot of.
and it doesn't say here, I believe in Hashem, I believe in God, none of that.
No.
I'll do it. Like, okay, I agreed. I'll keep your rights, And because she's Jewish and going, even if she goes, London, when you're with other Jewish people, you have to keep kosher. You have to dress the same. I mean, because you can't be with non-Jews because they're not allowed to be with you. So, all right, I'll keep your rights. I'll stay Jewish. I'll conform. I think that's what I got out of that.
That doesn't jive with her character, I thought.
But now she has a baby.
Oh, that's true.
She's changed.
She's changed.
You told her everything about her. She's right.
She's about.
Yes, right.
Myrna, yeah, and I am at fault here. Myrna, welcome to our group.
Thank you.
Everyone can say hello and introduce themselves. And do you want to add anything else?
No, but I'm as this young.
Evie, yes.
That Evie said to me, she said, the discussion is really much better than the book.
That's true.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that every time.
I made a mistake, Ed, but you said you did the same. I read it on a Kindle. And I see now that this is important, that you have the book there. You can look at the specific things that the people are talking about. You give your ideas, you can write in the book. And I kind of learned that.
The only thing with the Kindle is that I love is you press.
Dictionary.
The dictionary.
Exactly.
The dictionary.
You press the word.
You can note, I mean, I read almost always of the short story books I often buy, but I read on the Kindle and you can write yourself a note in it that you can go back for a discussion. And the fact that you can look up the words and the fact that it's so tiny and it fits in your purse and you're not going around a heavy.
The biggest thing for me is I can make the print bigger.
Exactly. Yes. I mean,
We can relate.
A lot of that. You had to look up so much.
my last question. We've talked about how this relates to contemporary issues, anti-Semitism, gender, vengeance. But the last one in this question is collective trauma. Comments on collective trauma.
The Holocaust.
Talk about
Holocaust is what
today.
I thought.
Today is collective
Boy, we have a lot of
it.
They interviewed someone at the polls yesterday and she said, they asked how she felt and she said, I am so frightened. She said, I am so frightened. And you could tell, she was near tears.
Who was
This is somebody they were interviewing at the polls.
Oh, okay.
How do you feel about what's happening? And I would say that's characterized as a lot of us.
Yes, well, and the Hispanic, so I said to our grass cutter, I said, if ICE is in the neighborhood,
Yes.
if we're home, you may come into our house.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he has papers, but not all his crew does. Do you know, he reached out and he said, can I give you a hug? No, and then he said, and by the way, I'm gonna bring you some mulch.
She's upset by ISIS. She's not affected by ISIS. ISIS is not coming to her and taking her away, but she sees it and we see it. And it's sort of out there and you're mad, but you're not really affected. And again, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I'm thankful I'm not. I live in Highland Park, I'm privileged, blah, blah, blah. But it's still something that we see.
Myrna.
I was affected by a news, little snip on the television news, of the terrible fire in the building, and the lady was crying hysterical. And why was she crying? Because she had her daughter's papers in there.
Oh,
the
buildings, all the buildings.
And you know,
Oh my God. I never would have thought, you know. Wow, Lynn.
I want to close with this.
Okay. Because we're getting close to the close time, and I usually can go over. I can't today because I have paper. Well, I always have paper.
In teaching how to read a book, she keeps emphasizing that the reason that we read books is to get close to the characters in order for us to feel empathy. And that empathy is the greatest emotion you can feel.
Absolutely.
After reading a book. If you don't feel it, you have not identified with the characters, you have not read the meanwhiles, you haven't seen motivation. And I think what Judy's talking about is empathy, and Myrna's talking about empathy. And you're feeling for and with these people because you know if it happened to you, how you would feel.
You know, there was a
So,
story about a man who hired a roofer who he knew had immigrants. They put on the roof and then he called ICE. So he didn't have to pay.
Oh my God.
I'm driving here
Evil.
and I'm thinking
Right.
about her and I'm thinking, I'm burning down this man's house. I've got to find out his name and I'm going to have.
I mean, that is, not only is it the opposite of empathy, but to have that vitriol, that hatred is, wow. Yes, quick question.
And maybe I'll direct it maybe to Mary and maybe some of you. My discomfort is, and maybe that's me, I don't know how to broach the conversation with somebody, you know, without putting them on the spot or making them feel awkward or being too personal.
It depends on who it is. We've had Jose for 20 years or 15 years. I mean, it's been a long time. And we know about his family. He's had, he got married. He has a child. His wife works on the cruise sometimes when he's short. I mean, you get to know these people.
Yeah.
Now, I can say that to him because I know him.
Got it.
Okay. We have somebody doing tree trimming today. He just showed up, which is fine. But I don't know him. Sue gave me his name. He's great. That's fine. But I mean, I don't know him well. I'm not going to walk up to him. Now, if people started blowing whistles in the neighborhood, I'd say my door is open.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know how to broach it to someone I've never known to say, oh, are you, because what happens if I'm the person that says, I'm going to call ICE?
Yeah.
And I think that we've all changed to some extent. Rick wears a whistle now.
Wow.
My God.
Yep, he does. He's out and about and he says, if I have to, I'll blow it. I think what really changed him is that my son and daughter-in-law lives in Irving Park. And what happened, they happened to be gone in DC at the time, but what happened with the tear gassing happened in front of their house.
Oh, my God.
So it is, and Jim Schuster's grandchildren were caught in it. Because it was right before the Halloween party. All the kids were out lining up.
And they told me.
I think those two things, I mean, that has really made a difference in Rick's mind is that you just don't know. The most place you think is most safe.
Yes.
Upper middle class, lovely neighborhood.
As always, we've learned a lot. I'm going to go out to my landscaper and say the same thing. We are doing stuff here at Macomb. We're also going to have a program with Kim Weiss, who is a immigration lawyer, and some other people I'm trying to round up on Monday, November 24th. We're collecting food. So you can make a difference. It's so good to see everyone. We meet again the first weekend in the third weekend.
The third Wednesday.
The third Wednesday, thank you. The 19th. And we're reading the next story, which is, and I send out.
Someone back from the
I did bring someone back from the
I
dead.
read it. Read the last page first.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question this. We bring the gift here.
Yes.
So made out to the person or a card or
You
whatever?
put the candle back on it.
Oh, yeah, there is no name on here. Never-
Yes.
So there's no, okay.
Okay, but you have to leave part of it in the thing and yes.
If anybody wants to know,
My
I know.
candle came off.
What is it? Doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter. What matters is that we know that you took X, Y, and Z. Good to see everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, quick question.